Hi everyone. Welcome to the session, and thank you for joining us today. This is the first installment of Actionstep's live roundtable series called Subject Matters. It's really focused on digital and leveraging digital automation and transformation. My name is David Woolstencroft, and I'm actually the co-owner and editor of Legal Practice Intelligence, and also the CEO of Novum Global. Today, I will be actually hosting a roundtable session which will actually facilitate conversation between the legal thought leaders in Australia and New Zealand who have come together for the session to discuss how digital automation is affecting lawyers, clients, and the industry at large. Throughout this session, we'll be covering everything from what digital automation means to lawyers today to how you can start adopting automation for your firm. As you can see from the agenda, so shortly I'll be introducing to you our speakers, and they'll be starting discussions around leveraging digital automation and transformation. We also want to hear your perspectives as well, and there'll be a time when you can actually ask questions, share ideas, and we can have discussions around that, and you'll hear from the various sort of thought leaders that are actually on our panel today. So today we've brought together legal thought leaders in Australia and New Zealand to discuss how digital automation is affecting lawyers, clients, the industry at large in a roundtable style session. Our legal thought leaders include David Hepburn. So David is the global president of Actionstep, and as president, David's leading all the operational aspects of Actionstep's business and is responsible for the ANZ and UK markets. Prior to Actionstep, David spent more than 15 years in leadership roles for a range of software solution providers, focused on business transformation. His experience spans product development, solution design, customer success, sales, and market engagement. His passion is making a difference and helping customers deliver better outcomes for their clients. Emma Elliot. Emma's the CEO of ALPMA and has led the association for the last 4 years. She's been working with the legal industry for over 16 years, and prior to joining ALPMA as CEO, Emma worked for and consulted to a number of law firms and has held positions in business, finance, admin, HR, and BD. She believes in leveraging technology to improve business efficiencies, processes, and working environments which create better experiences for employees and clients. Steve Pickering is director of Verlata Consulting. Steve heads up the automations team at Verlata Consulting, who are a platinum certified consulting partner for Actionstep in Australia and New Zealand. Steve works with law firms of all sizes using Actionstep to come up with automation integration solutions that improve efficiency within the firm and the client's experience. We truly believe that automation is one of the most significant steps you can take to transform your law firm. It's a key to streamlining both your internal processes and unlocking value for your clients. So I guess we're going to start just with the panel now and just actually ask them questions about the panel and get their perspectives on things. So I guess one of the things that's interesting is digital automation. I mean, how did it all come about? And I'm just going to throw that question across to Steve.
Thanks, David. So digital automation, it's probably come more to the front the last couple of years, and I think a few reasons. So one, firms are looking to improve their processes, so operating consistently across the firm, doing things the same. And also over the last few years, cloud computing has become a key trend. So software like Actionstep and lots of other software products have gone to the cloud, and that's made it a lot easier for software companies to roll out updates and also for different software products to talk to each other. So that's really helped have firms think about what the possibilities are, and the work that we've been doing with firms, like what problems can we solve by automating.
I mean, I'll just throw a question across to Emma. Emma, what did you see from, COVID came and there were some big changes in the industry. I mean, what did you see from point of view of firms embracing digital transformation automation?
I think COVID in in that situation created that sense of urgency within those law firms, where I think that law firms, I think that automation and technology has been around for a long time. I think that it's taken firms a long time. So, for example, I've been around, as you said, for 16 years. I think that the conversation to do with technology has always been there, but it hasn't gained the traction that it has needed, and it certainly didn't, I don't think, until maybe about 5 years ago. COVID, when it came along, kind of just accelerated that sense of urgency, and it actually broke down a lot of the barriers in terms of decision making and roadblocks to get decisions made internally within law firms. So I think that kind of drove just a fresh look and a mindset shift within law firms, and I think that it got to the point where they couldn't not embrace some sort of change within the law firm, and it just had to happen. And I think that digital automation is just one of those things that COVID kind of accelerated.
I mean, David, what did you see? And you've been around. You said you have thousands of clients around the world that you're working with. I mean, I guess what did you sort of see COVID? What happened as a result of COVID with your client base?
Yeah, I really agree, Lemma, there, because I think what occurred with remote working and teams being distributed was a confluence of just a fundamental need for firms to figure out how to operate in this new land, because the kind of the glue, if you like, that holds an office together between a paralegal or an admin and their partner, for example, burst apart. And in order to help that work well, nascent technologies, as we've been talking about, such as task management or well-documented processes or steps that needed to be done through a legal process, just had to be automated. And without that, it was really hard to govern, organize, and report a firm. So I really agree. It's been such an acceleration. We've seen an acceleration in the last couple of years with our customer base. But it does, and we're going to come on to some of the challenges in a mo. But there's certainly things that you need to get your head around as you make that transition.
I mean, it's a question I've got, which is around, you make changes around digital transformation and automation, but what does it actually mean for in the life of a lawyer? How does it actually impact the life of the lawyer, and what's it mean to them?
From my end, I mean, it means different things to different members of the practice. In my experience, the gatekeepers of a lot of the process are paralegals and admins within the practice, and they tend to, force, if you like, the processes and be the guardians of them, chasing lawyers down, to make sure things are clean, or creating tasks for them to complete, or actually what I see occurring a lot is just that automation chief becomes that practice manager, looking at ways that we can streamline and better operate, versus the lawyer who probably spends still a lot of their time in Word and Outlook, a lot of the time, and that's or maybe there's obviously a number of kind of key specialist tools that they use, but actually for them a lot of the things happen behind the scenes.
It's interesting. I mean, Steve, what impacts are you seeing for lawyers, the actual lawyers themselves, as a result of automation?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of the automation where we're working with clients is around taking out some of the human elements for repetitive type tasks. So, and a lot of them are quite mundane tasks that you can automate. So once you remove those from both the lawyer or the admin team, you're giving them more time. So they have more time to work on higher value tasks. They're getting back to clients quicker because there's less admin type work. They're also more on top of things, whether there's automations built around alerting them of things that they need to work on now. So
interesting. I mean, Emma, with the member base, your member base, I mean, basically, does automation and digital automation and transformation, is that actually making people's jobs easier? Is it actually, are people happier? Are they getting more work-life balance? Is it easier to work between this new hybrid situation?
Yeah, good question. So look, we've got about 650 law firms that are make up our membership base. I don't know specifically what each and every one of them are doing, but holistically, from an industry, I think that law firms are embracing the automation of tasks. I think that they have been forced to, and I think that there's a number of internal and external pressures that are making it a necessity for them to, if they haven't already. In terms of going back to your other question, in terms of what businesses and what law firms get out of automation, I think that they get visibility across their business. I think that it's a really good strategy to mitigate risk. And I actually think it's a way to capture your IP. And picking up on what Steve was saying, the more that you can get rid of the human error element, and the more that you can automate repetitive processes or just repeat processes or processes that have very clearly defined steps, it makes sense to automate those things so that then you can have your lawyers and your staff doing those higher value tasks within your firm.
Just add, David, one of the things that needs to occur in this journey is that the practice as a whole buy into this. And it's led from, it could be a number of places, but it's much better if it comes from the top rather than a rearguard sort of action from practice managers or paralegals in the firm. But actually that conjoined view that actually this is worth investing in and spending the time to try and achieve those benefits that Steve described is actually one of the big journey obstacles that we see when selling software, for example. Actually, because practice management systems historically have been seen as a system of record, somewhere where stuff's stored. And that's actually not what actually the opportunity is here. Clearly, it is where something's stored and you can know where all your information is, you can index it and search it. But actually more powerful is the IP repeatability and reporting that Emma described. But that takes a philosophical step change for the firm.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I mean, that sort of leads on to another question I've got, which is really around, change and, how people feel about change and how, I guess, the barriers for change in a firm and how to overcome those barriers. I mean, I'll throw the question across the panel. I mean, how does, say, for example, a practice manager who sees there's a real need for automation, and transformation in their firm, how do they sell that change or how the successful ones sell that change into the firm?
In my view, you don't start with technology. You start with thinking about your processes. And that's the root of everything here that we're talking about. So taking a process that might operate very regularly within your practice or maybe an area of law, like a transactional area of law, like conveyancing or something like that. If you're a multi-practice firm or focused on conveyancing, and actually really documenting clearly the process. And then once you've got there, you can start to think about how you can better use technology to wrinkle out the low value work or the repeatable tasks or the areas where errors occur a lot.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, Steve, what's your perspective on this?
So when we've been doing projects for automation at firms, we're dealing with stakeholders at both ends. So someone who's driving the change, whether it's a practice manager or a partner, someone in that sort of role. And then we have the people that their tasks are being impacted. And a lot of the tasks that we're automating are quite simple tasks where we're like transposing data between systems, or we're just keying in data And when you're talking to the person that they don't have to do those tasks, and within the firm they're saying, oh, you'll have more time to do these other tasks that they're probably going to find more enjoyable, then we haven't found that much resistance to that change, because we're making their life a bit better, because they have tasks that they used to do that weren't that engaging, that has been taken away, and they're going to have more enjoyable tasks to work on. So we haven't come across huge amounts of resistance when we've been working with firms, which has helped with these projects.
I mean, Emma, what are you seeing as the attitude towards change, I guess, within your member base? I mean, what's the attitude in terms of actually like when, of wanting to change and wanting to be better?
I think that, our members typically are those in the business management seats within those law firms. I think that they naturally embrace change and business improvements more so than perhaps others within the law firm. So I think, they are the ones that are the real champions for change. They can see the business improvements, they can see the efficiencies that can be gained, and they are the ones that are in there promoting that and getting the buy-in. I think, during COVID, we saw a lot of hype, I guess, in the market to try and get new technologies into firms and to really kind of adopt new ways of working. I think a lot of our members kind of took a step back and actually had a look at the technology that they had within their law firms at their fingertips already, and they looked deeply into that technology, and they worked out how they could leverage the technology further within their law firms as their first step. So instead of trying to, bring in too much change, and there was that concept of change fatigue within the industry as well, I think that they kind of just took a step back, had a look at the technology that they had at their fingertips and available to them already, and leveraged that in the best way that they could.
I mean, you would have seen, Steve, a whole bunch of examples where people you have this amazing IP or knowledge about how different sort of firms operate and kind of, a best practice view almost of actually taking the software they've got Actionstep and actually like getting the very, very best out of it.
Yeah, we do have a lot of experience. I guess just first to add to Emma's point, so with the work that we do with setting up Actionstep for clients, and training them on how to use it. A lot of the times we'll work with clients over a two-phased approach. So the first phase is pretty much just trying to replicate what they were already doing from their previous system in Actionstep. And that's a fair bit of change already for a firm. And then there's a phase two of like all the things that we can get out of a system like Actionstep with workflows and document automation and its automation capabilities. And that's probably a longer process, because it involves a lot more looking at the business processes in detail and how we can automate those. And that's a more gradual over time. As the firm evolves and grows, then systems like Actionstep can grow with their needs. With the firms that we work with on automation, it's quite interesting. Like we don't have a lot of examples where we're doing the same thing on lots of firms. All firms are quite unique, and they have different problems and challenges in how they're working with their clients, and also strategically what they're trying to achieve and what their point of difference is. So there's not too many like cookie cutter automations that we implement. It's really looking at their strategy, how they're planning on providing value to their clients, and how we can work with them to make the most out of their existing software to achieve that.
I guess one of the sort of one of the underlying skills that you'd have would be very useful is in what you do is, I guess, that whole coaching and change management and actually helping people and coaching through change.
Yeah, that's right. So a lot of firms come to us. They might go to a session like today about automation, and they may not be doing much. And they might be a practice manager, IT manager, or managing partner, and they come to us like, we want to be automating our firm, but we don't know where to start. Can you help us on that journey? And Emma touched on it previously. It's more looking at what tasks they do regularly, and it's can be quite difficult for a practice manager because they've got a high level view of a lot of things, but they don't have the in detail knowledge, like say an admin in a work group might have, of the individual tasks and the process that they go through for working on matters. So the first step as a practice manager or someone that's going to implement that change is talking to the work groups in the practice and getting that understanding what the tasks are that happen quite regularly. They're candidates for what you could automate. So things like onboarding clients. Every firm gets new clients, and there's a process that they go through of getting the client's details, sending out cost agreements, sending emails, working with them, getting more information. That's a good place for a lot of firms to start because it's going to be something that happens quite regularly. Another area is where you might get that information and you got to capture it in different spots. So there might be a CRM system, there might be Actionstep, other systems. So they're good places, those ones where they're regular tasks that firms do quite frequently, and also where it's copying data. And then if you look at how many times you have to do that, then you can do some sort of cost analysis of what potential benefit there is for the firm.
And yeah, I suppose, David, it was interesting. I was just looking at the question feed there. That's great, Steve, that you've started to kind of put some color on what automation can be. And it can be anything from, as you say, a process around an onboarding task or a particular regular activity, assembling a document, with a variety of very complex and disparate data points that have to be drawn from across a matter, to how you capture time or even send emails, or even store documents, in a regular process and kind of consistent sort of way. There are so many of these areas of opportunity that, if you think of a particular email that you send and draft regularly, templating emails, is a big deal. To that process of a welcome letter, or even through a client portal, sharing key data points, getting feedback from customers, or collaborating on a document. All of these types of things are all really fantastic transformation, time-saving opportunities.
Could technology actually be a key aspect of attracting talent into law firms? Is that something that could be a differentiator from one law firm to another?
I'll jump in on that. I think it 100% can be. Certainly, I've spoken with some recruitment agencies that partner with ALPMA over the last 12 to 24 months. They are finding that more candidates are coming to them and asking questions as to the law firm's technology that they have and their attitude towards technology. And they are looking for law firms that embrace technology and have really good systems in place that remove the administration burden on lawyers, because the lawyers are more interested in doing the lawyering and the high value work than those administrative tasks. So that's a real thing that's happening in the industry.
One of our biggest sales, I'm sorry, don't want this to be Actionstep. One of our biggest sales vehicles is a lawyer arriving at a firm who's previously used Actionstep, and actually they're like a little change agent inside that firm they've gone to, and that's how our pipeline builds.
Yeah. It's interesting. You've got I guess the other sort of question I've got is around, and I sort of circle back around again to this whole sort of idea of the workplace, and I guess hybrid working. What does it mean? Yeah, I mean, what's it mean? How can it actually be properly implemented?
Well, and you think just one comment on that, just to extend that thought is, to the point of technology being an attractive thing for a new lawyer, a young lawyer to come to a firm and interact with. One of the benefits to the firm beyond attracting talent is the ability to onboard and bring new members of the team if a firm's growing or is, having to replace talent. A practice management system and a well-documented workflow and automation processes that are really well understood across the practice, increase velocity so quickly in terms of becoming productive for a new paralegal or a new admin or even a new reception person, who's taking calls from new clients, because you have a well-structured onboarding process. It lives in your practice management system. They don't mess things up. You do it a certain way and it happens the same way every time.
Yeah, another area that's been topical, I've had chats at law firms, is actually around the idea of succession planning. People are looking, there's partners are looking to move, or associates looking to partner roles and those kinds of things. And I guess, or there's people that just want to basically sell a law firm. I mean, I guess what role could technology play in making firms more valuable or easier in succession planning?
Well, I would go back to my initial comment where I think that technology and automation and any amount of time that you can invest into your business and its structures that retains your IP within a platform, I think that becomes then a really sellable asset, and the IP is not linked with the partner. Probably full stop. It's not linked with the partner. It's actually sitting within the business, and that then becomes something that's sellable.
Yeah.
And technology is one of those things that you don't have to cross that bridge if it's already solved now. And you are trying to, exit your practice. It's just one of those, and again, these projects, and Steve, you've got lots of experience doing this. I mean, they are, as you said, there are horizons to them. There's selection of a system, there's, before you even get there, there's thinking about technology and how you use it and your current systems, what you might need, then selection, then implementation. And actually, as Steve said, that's probably a few phases. And I look at our best customers and they're continuously investing in this. It's not like a static activity where they do it once and it's done. It's a continuous opportunity. So, these are long ongoing things, David, that I think are well worth getting done and are a reason that you might well be able to plan a succession for your organization.
We've seen a decent number of firms, like firms come in all shapes and sizes, and we do see firms where they're operating sort of like a franchise type model where the systems that they're able to but they put a lot of emphasis on their systems. So it's more like lawyers are joining the firm, whether that's principals or consultants. And one of the big attractions of coming is that there's going to be good systems around them. They can focus on their legal work, and they know that everything else is going to be run really well. And that becomes, as Emma said, about the firm's intellectual property, something that is quite sellable because you have this business model that works well, and it's scalable, and that really adds value to that firm.
Excellent.
And that firm and some of those firms, those franchise firms, are very, very efficient in terms of global arbitrage as well, distributing resources around low-cost centers. We have customers that have half of their resources in places like the Philippines or Thailand or Indonesia, because they're able to have confidence that those, units of work that are going off to those places are done in a very repeatable way and are done at as a low cost of price as possible. And that's possible with good cloud-based technologies.
So, I mean, one of the things that that's running through my mind is that, a firm, again, sort of circling back on a comment earlier, which is around making a change and this whole process of actually digital transformation, automation. And I mean, what would your top tips be to any firm that is actually, or anybody in a position where they're kind of thinking about this, and the top tips in terms of actually going on the journey of transformation, and top tips for change, like being a change agent?
My first top tip would be to have someone within the firm that's going to be your champion. You need, whether that's a practice manager, and you need that person to be sponsored by like the managing partner or a key principal. So that has that everyone in the firm knows that we're serious about this journey, because it can be a journey that takes some time. There's probably going to be some quick wins, but there's probably other areas where if you're going to automate a number of things within the firm, that's going to take some time to map out your current processes, where the bottlenecks or opportunities for efficiency are, and then look at remapping those processes and how automation fits in. So
I have a top tip too. I'm sure Emma has one. My top tip too would be putting together a really good business case and a business plan for this. I think about dollars, think about goals you want to achieve, get really lined up about those, because those become the rallying cry of the project. In terms of either savings that you wanted to make, and one other pitfall in that is technology is one thing, and this isn't a plea from the guy in the software company, but actually the implementation and ongoing kind of maintenance of this investment that you're making is essential too. You can't just look at this as a one-time spend and some outcomes that come. So that business case, I think, is my top tip. Sorry, Emma, I'm sure you have some thoughts.
Yeah, I think I agree with both of your top tips. I've probably got two. One is to start small and to have a win and then gain traction. And my second one is to take a really good hard look at your firm and what your internal challenges are. If you've got high staff turnover, if you're having trouble retaining clients or attracting new lawyers, or whatever, if you've got high stress levels, if there's uneven workflow allocation, there will be something within your law firm that there'll be a challenge that you're trying to overcome. Have a think about how automation and how technology can help you reduce some of those challenges and improve the business internally, and then work out a business case for it. In terms of, that business case, a lot of people think that if the lawyers aren't doing, work, then they're not, it's not creating value for the firm. But the thing that firms need to understand is if you actually streamline those bottom end tasks, it then frees up those lawyers to be able to do those higher value, which then brings in those extra dollars. And just because you streamline a process within your law firm, it doesn't mean the value to the client decreases. It just means your efficiencies within your firm have improved, and you can reallocate those resources to other projects, which then should, either attract more revenue for your firm or, add value to your existing clients. So,
The one final thought I had, maybe just to make it a nice round five, was around reporting and thinking about what it is that's important to you at the leadership level within the practice. What are the key data points that you want to measure? And that actually will drive a lot back into the process and the business case.
Yep. Correct.
Brilliant. So I think we're at the point now where I think we've looking at questions from the audience. So actually just asking folks that are actually being kind enough to join the roundtable to see what questions they may have. So I'm just going to actually have a look at see what some questions there already that I can get you guys to look into. 1 second. Get our expert panel to look at. 1 second. Okay. Can you give examples of digital automation that have succeeded in freeing up time for lawyers?
Steve, you had a good go.
I'll throw out a couple of examples. And I liked Emma's point earlier about looking for some quick wins. So some quick wins might be something like scanning documents. So if you're currently scanning a document and goes to your inbox and then you got to save it somewhere, you could look at most copier companies have integrations where you can select the matter from the machine. It can save it to your practice management document management system and possibly add the disbursement on a file if you're charging for scans. So that could be a quick, easy one. If you're not already doing this with Actionstep, so Actionstep has a workflow functionality where you can template regular emails. You can have documents that get generated, pulling information that's already from the matter into the document. So it cuts down on keying. And yeah, any transposing. Another example would be if you had a separate CRM system or like a MailChimp, something like that. Again, using Actionstep as an example, whether you have it syncing between Actionstep and that system. If any updates happen to one, have it updated in the other. They're things that cut down time and sort of more the admin time than the lawyer's time. As far as a lawyer goes, it might be things like if a certain task is done by someone else in the firm, having it set up that you get notified, whether it's through instant messaging or through within Actionstep or email that thing has happened, and you as the matter manager or responsible for that file need to know about things like that, or reminders and things like that, so you don't need to check the file. There's a couple of examples.
Excellent. Anyone else?
No, that's good. That's good stuff. One of the topics we invested a lot in some technology around in Outlook, because a lot of context switching occurs that is very time consuming for lawyers, where you're in an email, then you're in a practice management system trying to store the documents. So we were trying to in our add-in for Outlook bring a lot of the power of Actionstep to where a lawyer lives most of the day, because actually that context switching particularly can be really time consuming. But no, I really agree with Steve's. There's some great starting points.
Another question I've just seen that's come up now is how long should it realistically take to implement automation tools for my law firm?
That's really how long's a piece of string and what you're trying to do. So you could start off quite small, and it really depends on the firm and sort of what work you're doing. So with some of our bigger automation work that we're doing with clients, they're probably more in the transactional type work where it's quite repetitive, whether it's conveyancing, mortgage processing, something where it's low value but high volume transactions, and that provides more individual tasks that possibly could be automated. And then it depends on the firm. How many practice areas are you working in? What sort of work you do. So
we see firms try, I mean, again, you can spin up a practice management system pretty quickly and get some process configured in a few weeks. But actually, as Steve said, it's like, we try and encourage customers to try and get some value quickly, just to Emma's point, try and get a win on the board, try and get somewhere, and then that enables you to go to the next step. So, a 2 or 3 months kind of horizon is probably a decent horizon to get somewhere. But as Steve said, beyond that, it could be, a number of more months to kind of bring the practice along, make the changes to the processes you want, and then get them really well documented and embedded in your tech.
So another question that's come up is, can automation create issues with compliance?
Good question. Well, I think actually automation probably does the opposite, in my opinion, in terms of compliance. I mean, it probably gives you more confidence that you are meeting compliance or regulatory needs. So AML, for example, is something I know that New Zealanders have gone through in respect to government legislation in the last few years. I think Australia's on its way there, the anti-money laundering regulations, for example, and checking backgrounds, where cash came from for transactions and all those sorts of things are things that actually technology has a really great place to ensure that the firm are being compliant around those regulatory needs. And those, in New Zealand now, firms are being inspected annually by the regulatory authority that they're following correct AML law or regulations. So technology is one of the things that I think can actually give compliance officers within firms and managing partners confidence that actually they are being compliant.
Oh, great. There's a question I've got that's been directed at Emma. How do you think automation will look for law firms in the future?
Well, in my world, I would like to think that it's embraced and law firms would wholeheartedly adopt it. I think that is the way of the future. I think it should be. I think that, as I mentioned, all those internal and external pressures on law firms will I don't think they're going to go away. So I think that the law firms need to look at those pressures and look internally and work out how they can better create working environments for their employees and experiences for their clients. And I personally believe that automation and leveraging technology is the way to do that. It's the way forwards.
Yeah. Hey, David, I just saw a comment in the feed. You guys don't all see the questions, I don't think, but Christine, thank you for your comment. And just to that compliance question, she has just said that their trust review was just completed, and her practice management system made that extremely easy to be compliant, through that process.
Brilliant. And I guess from point of view of, what does Actionstep look like in the future from point of view of some of the things it's doing there, David? From point of view of how is automation going to actually get better and better and better?
Well, we are investing right now. We've done a lot of work just recently in and around the trust and accounting and billing. I saw a question around bank integrations and that sort of stuff. Those are areas where we're investing. Currently, we're looking at payments integrations right now, where we're trying to make it easier for firms to collect cash from their clients. Document management will continue to be an area where I think there are just so many opportunities to make it easier to automate, activities around all those documents that lawyers generate. Task management is one that's I know is on our roadmap. Thinking about, Steve mentioned it earlier, making it easier to task and then get alerts. So there's a whole range of areas and opportunities, and one of the things that we need to do as a business is try and figure out how to make automation easier to kind of do, because actually there is a kind of an inertia point that you've kind of got to get through to invest to get there. And trying to help firms kind of get through those barriers is obviously a benefit to us, but a huge benefit to them.
Got another question that's come up, which is, what advice would you give a person in management who's struggling to get buy-in from innovation from the partners?
Ooh.
Keep going. Keep chipping away at it. It is a real challenge. But I would probably, speaking from experience, I would go and get buy-in from different people within the firms. Often what you will find within law firms is that the partners will listen to lawyers, and if suggestions come from lawyers, I feel like it carries more weight from time to time, and that's not to undermine anybody in those administrative roles. It's not. But I think that that they're paid more, attention to, and it carries more weight. And they could be some fantastic champions for change. And if you can identify who those people are, get them on board, and then let them do that work, you will find you will get more traction. I don't know if anybody else sees that, but that's certainly a strategy that I have used in the past.
Brilliant. I mean, it actually sounds like there's almost like a whole another session you could do just on change management and actually and working through these changes in business cases and things.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay, I've got one more question. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say the other thing that you can do is just start throwing in questions around the firm and start getting the staff to think about the tasks that they're doing and come up with a better way for doing it. And you've got to kind of breed that curiosity factor as to, is there a better way that we could be doing that? And you just start those conversations, and then you'll probably find that you'll get some momentum there too.
Sounds like there's a wealth of knowledge here, Emma, in terms of actually like coaching people on how to make change.
Yeah, it's interesting. Steve mentioned at the top the opportunity with cloud tech, particularly in and around integrations with other third parties, and when thinking about those difficult partners, actually what I've seen a number of firms do is there might well be a really innovative opportunity, a new piece of software. It might be, there are things like I've seen some people customers do some really cool things with bots, to leveraging call waiting technologies or caller identification technologies to some really cool time tracking technology, where basically it's continuously working in the background, capturing time. And if you and all those technologies are kind of out there, obviously within our platform, we're looking at and thinking about doing some of that, but there's always going to be some really cool stuff. And actually, you can't access a lot of that if you haven't deployed cloud tech into your practice and have a platform that those new technologies can integrate with. If you're running on-prem old tech, there's no way you can benefit from those. So when you think about enlisting that partner, who might be a bit stuck in the mud, try and get them to get excited about particular technology opportunity or particular project that could only occur if you get your underlying kind of platform and technology right. Anyway, that might be a change opportunity for one of those sort of decision makers, if you like, within your practice to kind of buy in on.
Right. Got one more question, which is, how do you manage integrating automation and other digital process changes while still maintaining a clear and easy process for clients?
Oh, can you repeat that? I missed it.
Yeah, sure. How do you manage integrating automation and digital process changes while still maintaining a clear and easy process for clients?
I would say when we're doing automation projects, we spend a fair bit of time on testing. So we're running it like sort of in parallel, maybe as a trial, and making sure it's bedded down quite well before we roll it completely out to clients. Because when you're doing it, things might pop up that you may not thought of in the initial design.
Yeah, one other piece that it's an interesting question, because one of the ways I've seen some very successful firms think about it is putting the client at the center of their process and actually building their process around the client's experience, because ultimately that's what the firm's orientation, well, I wouldn't say should be, maybe should be, delivering great service. So actually, if you did that, then you'll absolutely make sure you nail the customer needs, in that.
Brilliant. Well, I guess it sort of wraps up the question side of things. I mean, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today for a roundtable session, which subject matters. And thank you to the panel. Amazing insights, amazing thoughts, and some great discussion, which is very thought-provoking. Some great comments along the way as well. I learned a lot. We're recording this session the next few days. In the meantime, if you've got any questions at all, just basically email marketing@actionstep.com if there's any more questions. But fantastic session. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.